All right, let's talk about the more broader impact on this sector. You put out a note a couple weeks ago looking at the potential tariff impact on biotech. You believe the tariff's going to be somewhere around 50%. You say the EPS impact negative, obviously, 4 to 5%. Do you still hold that belief when we're seeing some trade deals at least kind of seeming underway, specifically with China, and also sounding like one with the UK could be coming up as well?
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, there's a number of challenges that the sector faces and has caused significant pressure and anxiety by biotech investors. One is definitely sector-specific tariffs that you mentioned has been floated as much as 50%. If you take a look back, as high as 200%. But if you do the 50%, that is a manageable impact for many of these companies. There's also other challenges that are being floated. Most favored nations, another factor which could drop drug prices by as much as 40 to 50%. That's another related type of impact. So assuming not all of these impacts are going into place, these are definitely uncertain downside risks to the model. However, the takeaway is that many of these stocks are down more than 20 or 30%, and in fact are trading at decade low PE multiples. So our call is, while these uncertainties are out there over the next few weeks or few months, as we hear about this, generally, those are uncertainties and overhangs removed.
Okay.
And the stocks actually tend to move higher after that. And obviously, if you look back at some of these other stocks with the tariffs, a lot of the stocks are obviously higher off the bottoms.
All right. So you're saying that these stocks have fallen to an attractive valuation. So there might be an opportunity to buy here. But I want to go back to this most favored nation thing. This isn't something that I think most people are familiar with, the idea of a most favored nation policy when it comes, especially with something like pharmaceuticals. So exactly what does that mean? And I want to ask you, as we talk about this kind of tension between the White House and the pharma sector, does the president have a point? Is the U.S. essentially overpaying for these drugs, and are other countries paying so much less? Are these drug companies factoring in the idea that the U.S. is going to overpay, and is that kind of factored into their models when it comes for EPS and revenue?
Well, this is a policy that is not new. It is also not a new concept that the U.S. on average pays 40 to 50% more for the drug price, drug versus other basket of, say, 5 to 10 major developed nations. We also get our drugs faster. We are also the home of the innovation. And many of the pharmaceutical company executives over the last few weeks pointed to the fact that most of those countries are also facing the downside issues because of R&D investment, getting the drugs years later, and obviously the countries aren't benefiting from access for many of these drugs. So the point is that while we could face a policy where the government first floated Medicaid as an example of where these prices could start to play in, we already have an example of this, which is the IRA. And the United States government does negotiate 15 to 20 drugs per year, and will be doing that for the next decade. Much of these policies are into place. And so there's going to be a balance of that. We will see if this happens. But on average, there's obviously a downside risk to these policies going into place.